All right, ladies and gentlemen. Today is another good day the Lord have made. So, listen, we must give gratitude to God. We mustn't take for granted what God is doing for us. All right? You wake up this morning, you are feeling healthy, you blessed, right? So we thank God for everything. And we humbly ask Him for His wisdom. Hello, listen. God's wisdom will make you to be wise, gives clarity, right? It's not a joke. So we humbly ask Him to give us clarity regarding what we are going to do this morning, right? All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, my beloved students, remember where we stopped yesterday? Right. We talked about the principles. Focus. Look at me. I said, brief. Well, so we've talked about the principles of evaluation, which is very important. Hello, listen, be disciplined, right? You know, people are watching this thing all over the globe, all over the universe, right? So we are on air now. Please focus, right? We talked about the various principles of evaluation, right? We talked about. Thank you so much. Blank pages. Okay, see if you get check there if you can get blank space. I don't think you've got some there. You are distracting me. We're on air, right? Okay, so guys, we talked about the impartiality as a principle of evaluation. You don't appoint somebody that is biased to be an evaluator. Otherwise, at the end of the day, the outcome, or rather, the report will be prejudiced. You know what we mean by prejudice? Hello, focus, look at me. The report could be compromised or prejudiced, or rather judgmental, if you will, right? We say it must be credible, credibility. If a report emanating from an evaluation or project review is not credible, what is the use of engaging yourself in such a hectic exercise? And at the end of the day, the outcomes will not be credible. It's of no use. You waste money because to do a project evaluation is expensive. It's not cheap, right? So the outcome should be credible in the sense that the evaluator should be or should have experience and expertise. Okay, we talked about this yesterday, right? I don't want to waste too much time on this slide. We've already talked about this. Then we talked about the purpose of evaluation, right? Which is done like yesterday. Remember, I explained to you that evaluation is being done in three stages. Hello, I hope you are all right. Are you all right? Okay. In three stages, right? The first stage is during implementation. For example, midterm to review. Okay, during the implementation of the project, you need to look back as well to see how you are doing. Do you understand what I mean? Because if you don't look back, you just keep on going, you might end up not achieving what you set out to achieve. Do you understand what I'm saying? Where's my pointer? I don't have my stuff today. Okay. Why you don't say, okay, let me wait till the end of the project before I review it? Look, listen, focus. Because it might be too late. That is why you need to do it at the midterm before you finish, right? You started, for example, if it's a project of 1 year, you could say, okay, after 3 months or there about 6 months, you do a review evaluation to see whether you are achieving, right? Because if you wait till the end of the project, if there were errors that were made that you're supposed to have corrected at the beginning and you didn't correct it, it will be too late. Do you understand what I mean? They say it's too late when the head is off, right? We used to have that type of proverb those days. So it's always good. That is why we talk about preventative measures. Before it happens, you need to be proactive. Listen to me. Look at me. Don't look somewhere else. You need to be proactive, right? That is why you need to start the evaluation at the midterm. So at this point in time, hello, listen, focus. At this point in time of evaluation, what do you need to focus on? One, the progress, right? The review the progress and purpose alteration to the project design. You know, project design, for example, if it's a construction project, not necessarily any type of project. Remember, there's a design that you've made. Wait, don't worry, don't stress. Right. So at a certain point, you need to look back to review it. For example, you look at the progress. Am I making a good progress? If not, why? How can I effect some changes to bring the project back to track or back on track, if you will? Right? You look at this design. Remember when you were doing your design, younger, your design was done, it was a future. What is going to be happening? Right? Now that you started implementing, it's possible that what you design might not be what is happening in reality. Right. So you need to look back at the design now. Is it exactly how I preconceived it? Let me use that language. Preconceived it or predetermined it. It was designed in space, right? Now it's in reality. As you are implementing, you must look and see if it is still working. So you see, it's very important, right? The type of evaluation that you need to do at this stage. Right. So you need to review and see if perhaps, Jonga, there is a problem with the design. It's not the way you conceive it that is happening in reality. You need to make a little bit of adjustment. Right. Like the progress. If you are not progressing the way it should be, then you need to do something. That is what we call control. You need to do something to make sure that you bring the project back on track. Does it make sense to you? Then, at the end of the project as well, you need to do a kind of evaluation. You can call it evaluation or project review. It's the same, right? So, what happened then at the end of the project? What type of evaluation are you going to do? In other words, what are you going to focus on? You need to look at the resources used, right? Because you don't want any wastage, right? Wastage of resources. You need to look at it where the resources optimally utilized. You know what I mean by optimally? Efficiently utilized. Do you understand what I mean? I told you yesterday when you are doing an evaluation, there are certain things that you look at. For example, you look at the relevance, right? The relevance of the project. You look at the coherence, right? Then you look at the impact, the effectiveness, the efficiency, and the sustainability. I don't want to bug you with those type of stuff, right? That is beyond your scope. Right. I told you I love this aspect of project evaluation. So at the end of the project, you need to look at the resources, where the resources effectively used or put to use in a good way, right? You need to look at that. Then result obtained, which is the outcome. You need to look at what you've achieved, whether it's exactly what you set out to achieve at the beginning. You see, it makes sense, actually, right? You need to look back. Now I've done with the project. These are the outcomes. Are they the same outcome that I preconceived at the beginning? Right? You need to look at that, the progress that was made, and what lessons can you learn from the project? What lessons can you learn? Are there lessons? Of course, there should be lessons that needs to be learned. Right? Where you did well, then you give a pat on your back. Well done. Right? You've done well. Right. But when you are doing that, don't be like that. That man in the Bible. There is there's a story in the Bible. The man was had a very good harvest. Right. At the end of the day, instead of saying thank God, he didn't thank God. He was thanking himself. But what happened? God said, "This is a foolish man, right? I have blessed you with so much, and you are not even giving gratitude." Yeah, morning, sir. Morning. Oh man, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hey, this thing is strong. Okay. So all are not mine. So what I'm gonna do is I will only put an Mm. Okay. Next new venture. All right. So you need to show that gratitude, as I was saying. Now for what you've achieved. Do you understand what I mean? So yeah, that is what you do at the end of the project. Then what happened afterwards? You still need to do a kind of evaluation, right? Afterwards, that means few months after the project has been completed, you need to come back and do a kind of evaluation, right? In some books, they call it ex ante. Ex ante. That is a Latin name, right? Some call it post mortem, right? You know what is post mortem? Examination. That is when somebody is dead, somebody, the medical practitioner need to go there to establish the cause of the death, right? Okay, but that is not what we mean here now. I say here we call it ex ante or postmortem. So what it means is you need to go and look at the project, review the project to establish if the project is achieving its impact. Impact. That means what changes that the project is making in the community. Do you understand what I mean? Because you do project to bring about a change, right? Now you have to go back afterwards when the project is completed, few months after the project is completed, to go and look, is there really any change emanating as a result of the project? Do you understand what I mean? So if there is any change, then you know the project is good. If there is no single change or there is nothing that is happening, then you know that the project is not achieving its impact. Right. Here we don't talk about sustainability. You still have to go and look and see how that project can be sustained in terms of being able to be on its own for a long period of time. Right. Okay. So these are the three stages. Right? Is it clear? In the exam, they can ask you, right? How many times do you do evaluation in a project? You say 3 times, right? If they ask you to explain, then you should be able to explain eloquently. Okay, this aspect is very important as well. What we call it, the evaluation criteria. This was what I was explaining to you just now, right? The relevance. you need to establish if the project itself is irrelevant. Relevant in the sense that is it something that can be able to meet the needs of the community. Sometimes you can do a project at the end of the day is not relevant to the needs or to the aspirations of the community. So in that case, that project will not be regarded as a good project, right? So you need to go back and look at the project in terms of its relevance to the needs of the beneficiary. You know what I mean by beneficiary, right? Then you need to look at the efficiency. What are we talking about in terms of the efficiency? The usage of resources. The usage of resources. Were the resources able to achieve, right? Were the usage of resources optimal? What we mean is using less to achieve more, right? You talk about the efficiency, the effectiveness, right? Then you talk about the impact, then sustainability. So we say evaluation is an external process. Of course, it's an external process, right? It shouldn't be done by people that carry out the project. Like I said, it must be impartial because if it's someone that did the project, is still commissioned to do the evaluation, there will be that element of biasness. Where there are errors or problems, they will not like to expose it, right? So that is why it must be done by an external individuals, right? And what did I say again is I told you that the person that is doing it must make sure that if that person is competent, got the skill, knowledge to be able to evaluate the project. Right. Then, this evaluation is frequently carried out by funders to find out how their monies were utilized. In most cases, it's carried out by funders, people that put money, right, that invest in that sponsor the project. They do evaluation to see whether their money was effectively utilized. For example, if the project is done and after the evaluation you discover that it's not even relevant to the needs of the beneficiaries, right? Then resources were wasted, I mean. Then you look at the effectiveness, the impact, there is not much impact, right, as a result of the project. So it means that the money the funder put in that project is wasted. So when after the result of the evaluation, once the founder discovered that there are is relevance and it was efficient and all those type of stuff, all these ones are positive. Then the founders will know that. Then they can be able to establish that they put money in a good cause. So they can either decide to replicate it or to do it again to in some other areas. So if they discover that it was not achieving what it's supposed to achieve, that means they can either decide to stop it because it becomes a kind of a wastage. Nobody like to waste money, right? Or waste resources. That is what we are talking about here, right? All right, are you with me? Then, okay. So what happened is this. For example, if at the end of the day you discover that, let's say you've done your evaluation, you've discovered that there are certain things that are not so much right in terms of the design, right? Let's say the first one you did to review the design, midterm one. Then you discover that there are certain snags. You know what I mean by snags? Errors in the design. So how will you be able to uh, put that one right? You initiate a process of maintenance process. That is what we are trying to say, to maintain the final product of the project. What I'm trying to say here now is this. For example, you see this 4 arrow building, right? What do we call that in project? It's a product of the project. A product of the project. Remember when we started, it was a project, right? So haven't is done now. It's no longer a project, it's a product of the project, which is a part of the deliverables. You know what we mean by deliverables? The outcome. Okay. Oh man. These people are cutting me short now. Okay. Anyhow, we're gonna continue from here tomorrow. Yeah. What? You need some white papers.